Okay, real talk, y'all. How many of us started playing guitar with just power chords and we're like, oh yeah, that's the business, that sounds really cool. But then quickly over time, these power chords just start to sound kind of boring, robotic, or stale. I know I was in this position, and sometimes I still find myself in this position. So what I try to do with my playing and my chords is I try to add a little bit more emotion. And there's a couple different ways that you can go about doing that. And that's one of the things that I'm going to try to break down in this video, in this lesson here. So in this video, I am a half step down, and let's say that I'm doing an E power chord right here at the 7th fret on the A string. And let's say that I'm just chugging along like this. Don't get me wrong, that has its place, but if you wanted to add a little bit more beef to it, what if you wanted to add a little bit more like gristle to the way that sounds? Well, we could do a couple different things to thicken up our sound to add what I would call, just for the sake of this video, emotion. Like, that's an E, so we could actually hit the low E, open with that, and it sounds like this. Versus... You can also strum through the whole thing like this. Now keep in mind, of course, then we are adding other notes to the fundamental chord. So the chord might change a little bit in sound because, yeah, we're adding then, open G and open B and another E, but it's giving a lot more definition to the note, a lot more character, if you will. And we're adding 2 E notes there open completely because this string is an E and the high string is an E. So just going like this sounds way fuller than going. And after this, you might not look at power chords the same way. You might be like, dang, I always have to strum it open. But you shouldn't always strum it open because there are parts and times when the adding more notes and bigger, fuller sounds fits certain parts of the song better than not doing that, right? So if we were just like palm muting, that might be great during a verse or something where you're really letting vocals shine through and you really want to have some emphasis, not necessarily on the guitar, but then part 2 of the verse comes, you want to start chugging a little bit more, maybe changing the dynamics of your pick, which is another thing that you can do, maybe turning your pick slightly and giving it a little bit more attack in your riff. And then the chorus comes along, and then that's when we start whipping out the big guns, throwing down those, big ass chords. Big ass chords for a big ass chorus. Something else that you can do, or something that I see some guitar players do, really that I saw Angus Young do when I was learning a bunch of AC/DC. AC/DC is one of my favorites. I noticed that he does full chords down here, not just power chords. He'll actually let first position chords do the talking, and that's a great way to get more emotion out of your chords because you're really striking all of these strings and allowing them all to sing out. So you have this chord, or it's different voicing on that chord, and it just sounds way more full. There are other things you can do with other chords as well. Like an A chord, we can bar the 5th frets with our pinky on the B string and the A string because that will thicken out the sound. The 5th note here is actually an E note, and this note is an A note played together. They sound cool, especially if you put that with your A chord here. And it adds more motion, more sound than just a regular A chord. It really just helps you develop a fuller tone overall. Let's take a look at some other ones, like a D chord. You have this. Keep in mind I have a relatively high amount of gain going on, obviously. But you can do some other things, like maybe we lift our middle finger and leave that open E going as just ringing out with the chord. Now, again, that's changing the notes of the D chord. We're adding an E note now, but it just changes the feel. It adds a little different emotion, a little bit different sauce to the mix. versus. And don't be afraid to use other fingers, like the 3rd fret here. There's not any rules if it sounds good, if we did something like this. But we're using those fundamental notes of the D chord, like the D itself here, and then the A note here. Because together, those sound great. Now, you could always change your dynamics in the way you play them. You can use your fingers. You hear how that has such a softer tone. Even with this heavy amount of distortion and gain that I'm doing here, it adds a different sound to it by playing with my fingers versus playing with a pick. And these are just different ways that you can add a different level or layer to your mix. Other interesting techniques that I've learned over time would be like maybe go to drop D. And now if we're doing that D chord and we strike, it's similar to like what we were doing with the E, but if we're doing that D chord and we hit this all the way open, you're going to get that low fundamental of this string, which is now tuned to D, all the way open. Taking it one step further, we can go to what's double drop D. We're actually going to take this high E and tune it all the way down now. And it's just so big sounding, so cool, a lot of depth behind that sound, really. Now, let's say we're barring some chords while we're in drop D. There's a couple different things we can do here as well, and one of the things that I like to do, changing the chord structure itself a little bit, we're adding a new note to it. But instead of hitting the octave, because when we're in drop D, now the low E and the D string, those are octave notes. So here is an E, and here is an E. Same note. First of all, before we jump into what I was about to say, I just realized I want to mention quickly that you can actually hit both of these and mute the middle string, mute the A, and you get that really cool octave sound. Which sounds very evil. It gives it a very dark sound. I love the way that octaves sound in conjunction with each other. But what I was going to say is you can actually bar this and then take your ring finger or take your pinky finger and add it a step up on the D string. And that's something that I hear a lot, especially in new metal and new rock. It just adds a depth to your chord. Versus this. Again, we're changing that chord, so it's no longer just a straight whatever note you're playing. This is no longer just an E. We're adding a new note to it. But it's got a cool sound to it nonetheless. So it's really all about intention. Like, what are you trying to achieve with your playing? What are you trying to add? Because the more you add, the more notes that you add, the more complex the chords are going to be. But you can get some really unique voicings out of them that way. Some other interesting things that you can do is slide into the chords. So I was just hitting this chord. But if we slide into it, we have that kind of ascending sound into it, almost like a majestic push into the note. And you can do that anywhere. Another tip that you can do is mess with your volume knob and your tone knob. Don't let them just become on all the time. They're tools that you can use, right? So if we have our tone knob turned pretty far back, it's going to roll off a lot of the high end on those notes. Now if I roll that tone back in, or if I keep it all the way off, which sounds really cool. So one of the things that I like to do is actually keep that tone knob rolled all the way back, and then actually roll back the volume too, and it almost gives you kind of a clean sound. So this is a good thing to do when you're building, or if you have a bridge or a part that kind of goes down, and adding like a suspenseful part of a song. So then maybe for the second part of that same riff, I might crank the tone back up. And lastly, crank the volume all the way up. And for, maybe that's when the drums come back in, or right before a solo, just adding some beef, some thickness to our sound. Here's another one, changing your power chords by going like this. That is sliding that root note of the power chord down a half step. Again, we're changing the note of it, but it's going to change the emotion, the feel of it. Opposite version of that would be to slide this finger forward one, bringing these closer together. Your index finger and your pinky closer together. And I swear to God, I hear this in 80s guitar all the time. Specifically the band Rat. But if I had this riff. Just sounds really cool, right? So kind of aggressive, dirty, mean. Like, you want it to resolve. It brings out some really interesting flavors in the tone. And I quite like that quite a lot. I think it's a really cool thing. So your homework, or what you should do, is practice not being so stiff on the guitar. I know I say that and it's like, okay, yeah, but it's really just, if you could be more open to just like changing some of the notes in your guitar. Like if you're, like I said, doing the E chord, try to add some different feel to it. We can get a ton of different emotions and feel out of it. And it's a really good way to build up a bigger mix, a bigger, fuller sounding song. Something that I really think that you should try to take advantage of. That's your homework. That's what you should definitely do. I don't have any tabs for any of this, but feel free to, pause, rewind, or go back throughout some of my tips and tricks in this video. And I really hope that helps you out, especially if you're a beginner who just feels kind of stuck with like these, maybe feeling robotic with power chords, which power chords are great. They have their own spot. I don't mean to diminish them in any way, but sometimes adding bigger, fuller things to your song can really make your song breathe and start to bloom into something else more that you might be more emotionally invested in, if that makes any sense. So if this helped you add anything to your riffs, then please consider liking and subscribing to my YouTube channel. I would appreciate you guys so much. And if you want to check out some of these other lessons, I highly recommend that you do so. They should be popping up on the screen right now. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Cliffhanger. This is Riff with Cliff, and I'm going to see you guys the next time that I see you. Peace!